cutback for Vasilev, and Lukic! A banger of a strike for Jovan Lukic's first MLS goal!
It's fallen out to Westfield! Oh, wow! He's nearly taken the roof of the net off! Philadelphia pounce again!
Who gets his goal in his Union debut? The record signing, off and running in his first appearance for the club.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and for people who are listening on the RSS feed, you guys don't know that we're 11 minutes late into the podcast, but that's what happens when José Nuñez goes away for a week, and we're catching up with all things Union, all things his trip to Ireland. But as you guys do know, the Philadelphia Union fell to New York Red Bulls 1-0 on Saturday evening, snapping their 16-game unbeaten run against the Red Bulls in all competitions that goes all the way back to 2019. And we have so many thoughts to talk about that game, what happened during the game, what happened after the game. And I'm super excited to catch up with José Nuñez, like I told you guys, talking before we recorded this. And we'll go ahead and let José give an update on his trip to Ireland, back in the United States. Hopefully no more jet lag, José. But thanks, José, for joining us here at 9:12 at night. And it's good to have you back after a week of being away across the pond.
No, thank you for having me as always, Todd. And you're right. We started just talking, and I feel like this is the longest I felt disconnected from life. Obviously being in a different continent altogether. The time change was just the craziest, right? I did what I could watching one match, the Saturday match while I was in Dublin, watched it fully, did not go to bed till 3 a.m., could not do the US Open Cup match with that rain delay. The game, I think, ended at 5 or 6 a.m. my time by the time you guys were all done with press conferences and whatnot. So there was just no way. And the biggest issue with that was that I paid for a VPN and forgot to cancel the trial. So I'm on the hook for a $120 VPN for the next 365 days, which is fine. I'll use it, but just kind of a goofy thing. But the trip was great, man. It was a beautiful wedding. My cousin Dylan and his wife Chelsea got married out in Northern Ireland, maybe probably 20 minutes away from Northern Ireland. It was beautiful. It was fantastic. Great time to disconnect from life, from work, as much as I could from soccer. And as we'll talk about more, there's still news finding me while I'm out in a different continent altogether with moves that the Union are working on. But yeah, excited to be back. The last thing I'll say about my trip, I don't miss the shitty ketchup that we have here in the United States. I don't miss tipping culture. I absolutely love how in Europe, everybody's getting paid fair wages and there's no pressure to tip waitresses. You can if you want to, and I ultimately did for some people. But the food and everything, you just feel so much better eating anything. The food's just so different and tastier, and probably just because it's fresher. It was great. It was great to experience and sort of miss that only being back 48 hours at this point. So hopefully this is a once a year type of thing with my wife to disappear to Europe or somewhere outside of this country for about a week or so as just a way for us to just reset in a way, right? Not that we need it, nothing's wrong. It's just nice to go away.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to spend time away and get out of the normal day-to-day, go to work, spend time with the kids, pick kids up, come home, cook, all that jazz, hop on a podcast every now and then, work for MLS late at night. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't blame you for switching up the routine. It's good. And I guess a couple thoughts real quick. And I do have one question I want to mention to you is, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like people in Europe get a lot more holidays, they call it, vacations, than we do over here in America. So I feel like they're always going on vacation. They're always going on holiday. They're able to enjoy their free time a lot more than us. Two, it's interesting you say that about the food, because my buddy Jem, he says that all the time that he's over here in the United States. He thinks the food's better here in America than it is over in England. So That's interesting because I feel like everything over here is pretty much processed and everything, and we use fake ingredients and everything in our food. So I would tend to agree with you, Jose. I've never been to Europe and everything, but I feel like the food would be a lot better tasting over in Europe than it is here in America. But regardless, we'll save that debate for another day. The question I do have for you is people who weren't paying attention to you on social media with you wearing your different jerseys on pretty much every single day that you were in Europe. What was your favorite kit that you wore?
I think I really like the Piccadilly long sleeve kit. That one got some attention. People were asking me. That's a cool thing, right? Like out there, people were not shy to ask me. I never seen that kit. Tell me about it. And I was just answering questions. I would say the one that got the most attention was probably the Providence one, the Rogues, the Treat Yourself kit, which is a donut company that they partner with to make the kit that they did, which is this incredible pink thing. That one got a lot of comments, especially since I wore it as I was traveling across the entire country from Galway, to back to Dublin. But the one that really, really popped, and I almost felt like, the people I criticized, right? When we see them at the stadiums, at the Union, we see people wearing like random Chelsea kits or, random kits. I wore the Vermont green kit to the Leeds United AC Milan friendly at Aviva Stadium. And that one fits just so nicely. And I must admit, I think more sentimental than anything because of, our good friend, Mark Kelkenberg, gifted it to me as a thank you for hosting him at my house and probably saving him a few $100 worth of hotel fees. And he just has to, bring me something from his travels as he ping pongs around the East Coast. This one got a lot of questions, but my wife did give me a lot of shit for not taking something Union, especially to this game. Because Brandon Harrison was only 5 rows away, or however many rows are in front of me. It wasn't that many. My wife got some incredible tickets for a not so expensive price. So I would say Vermont Green. And it's cool that the team also retweeted the picture, which I was not expecting.
Yeah, loved watching they weren't blogs, but like your pictures you were posting every day just of you out and about in Europe, and it looked like you had good weather, which I feel like is not typically the case in Europe. I mean, you never know what you're going to get, so it's good that it looks like it was pretty much sunny the whole time you were out there. So, really cool to hear that you and your wife had a great trip out to Ireland.
Yeah, no, the weather was fantastic. We ran into the entire trip, which maybe is a little crazy considering the week. The entire trip was no higher than 76 degrees the entire time in Ireland, and only ran into 5 minutes worth of rain in Dublin as we were, no, or was it Galway? I can't remember, one of the two cities that we were just traversing about. And the one last thing I'll say is just how poorly this country has fumbled public transportation in the United States. I went across an entire country. Granted, the distance is not as long as some of the places here in the US, but to go from Dublin to Galway, two completely different cities at two extremes of the country, cost my wife maybe, I think it was like €55 for a round trip, which is amazing to not have to rent a car and pay the petrol, as they call it out there. It was awesome. So, do I have some regrets? Yeah, maybe some restaurants that we could have probably vetted a little bit better, but ultimately it was the best decision to get away from Dublin. And I almost wish I would have gone up to Northern Ireland, or Ireland. Is it the Republic of Ireland then at the top of Ireland? I can't remember whatever the country's called, because you have Ireland proper and then you have the other country on top. I wish we would have crossed more country boundaries, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So we're excited to hopefully do this again in the future. And I'm thinking Spain. There's probably a lot that we can do in Spain in one summer. Maybe even go even more central to like a Germany and just bounce around. I just want to make sure that wherever we go, we have some sort of handle on the language, which even Irish English is a different language altogether.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe you guys can go out to Marbella in January, February if the Union go back out there for preseason.
Unlikely. Yeah, these trips, and it was nice, right? Because my other cousin Bryant and his wife Taylor and ended up being the ring bearer. Their son, their 11-year-old, was along with them. Um, it was nice to ping pong around a little bit with them. I think they were in some of my pictures there. But yeah, I'm excited to maybe do more of that. If anything, it re-energized me to, I'm fairly thrifty, I should say, and careful with money, but like, I hate to say balling out this week, but like, just not thinking about it was great, because like, we're all on least time here on this world, on this planet. So like, to just really go for it and not care was an awesome feeling, for even if it was a week type of scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Shaggy says, Jose, welcome back to the States. And then Hoagie says, my first time in Spain, my rental was broken into. She said, my second time, my rental was also broken into. I don't park there anymore, she says. So sounds like
A
Sexy
great
Hoagie
story in 3 messages.
changed the name from Domesticated Hoagie back to Sexy Hoagie. I don't know what's going on there, but
Engagement better still be on.
hopefully. Right,
Hopefully,
let's not
did
let
we?
the,
Could we have caused a divorce?
I don't know.
Oh
Let's hope
no!
not.
Oh
I'm sure we're gonna
no!
get somewhere throughout the show, but regardless, yeah, great to have you back, Jose. And I saw one of the comments from Michael talking about Oliver Zemla. So without further ado, let's just get straight into the news. All right, and as Michael said, you had broken the story today, this afternoon on Sunday, about Oliver Zemla being loaned away. Sources have told you, Jose, to North Carolina FC of the USL Championship. That move does indeed open up a international roster slot for the Union. We do know a couple weeks ago now, the Union traded away a slot to Austin FC, and now the Union get one back, and we can talk about what that could potentially mean for the club. But regardless, Oliver Zemla, third choice goalkeeper, loaned out, which maybe it's a little bit unfortunate timing with Andre Blake's injury now. What do the Union do now at third goalkeeper, with Andrew Rick looking to become the starting goalkeeper with however long Andre Blake's out with his injury? We'll talk about that later on in the show. But yeah, Oliver Zemla no longer with the Philadelphia Union. It's not official by the club, but Jose, you never report things unless you're 100% confident. And this is a move that you and I talked about a while ago, that we thought that the Union probably should move on from Oliver Zemla. Finally, looks like it's happening. Zemla, 18 appearances for the Union first team, played over 1,500 minutes for the club since joining in January of 2024, has played a ton of minutes with Union 2. This season, he's made 7 appearances, totaling 630 minutes. So I guess your thoughts, Jose, not much of a surprise, I would say, with Zemla going out on loan.
No, and the destination at first was interesting, and then someone pointed out to me, a source pointed out to me, that this isn't the first time that the Union have dealt with goalkeepers going to North Carolina. Brooks Thompson, that was his first location before ending up at Lexington, where he ended up sort of reinvigorating his career after being at the Union 2, etc. So location's interesting. Also, the situation that North Carolina's in, right? I think they're in third or fourth place in USL, the Eastern Conference. But the gap between third and, or whatever they are, fourth or third, to like first place is like 20 some points. It's like an insane point gap, if I recall correctly, Todd. It's just sort of like, okay, this is interesting. I don't think that this is an addition to do much, and without really asking too many questions from sources, because I found out about this by happenstance. I was just walking around Dublin, waiting, making our way to Dublin Houston station to catch our train to Galway. I sort of got pinged of like, hey, there's something interesting happening. Do you have a minute? And I took a relatively expensive phone call because I was in Europe, and just listened for a little bit. And next thing I know, it's like, okay, checked with 2 other people, and it sounds like it's happening. He had been training, I think, over the last couple of days this week with the union still, as they were finalizing the deal, and of course, nothing's official. And this is again sources telling me, so can't imagine things changed. I checked one last time today, and it sounds like he was departing today at some point to go down to North Carolina. In fact, ESPN FC already has Oliver Semmle on the North Carolina roster. If you go and search their build in terms of composition of the roster, so yeah, I it almost feels like it might be North Carolina doing the Union a favor more than anything, right? Where do they really need another goalkeeper? I think he suddenly becomes the second youngest goalkeeper on that roster too for North Carolina. They have a 30-some-year-old Japanese goalkeeper. Then there's another guy, and there comes Oliver Semmle at his spry 27, if I recall.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But if history is to be followed with Philadelphia Union and loans, it typically means that they just move on, right? Think about Pierre and Riasco and all these other players that have gone on loan and not necessarily really come back to have any future. Who knows? Who knows? And I think after this year, he was on a single club option, if I recall, as well. So we'll see. And again, this is just, sources telling me. We'll wait for a confirmation. But again, after checking multiple times this week and ultimately today to double check if, the injury changed anything, as far as I was told, is no, it's done, and he's departing today. And I guess he was present at the stadium in New York with the club as well. So, and he was on street clothes. I take it.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. So, I don't know, Todd, what are your initial thoughts? I don't think that it, I mean, I think it's something you and I have talked about and maybe clamoring, wish it would have happened months earlier, but here they are with the situation they're in.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to say something real quick. So yeah, Louisville in first place in the USL Championship in the East, 47 points, only one loss this entire season, which is insane.
Josh Jones, brother, Josh Jones.
Charleston Battery with 44 points in second, Loudoun 31 points, and then North Carolina in fourth with 30 points. They played one less game than the teams in front of them. So yeah, they could jump Loudoun and move into third, but you're right. I mean, that's a huge difference between really first and second to everybody else. So yeah, Oliver Semmle, I mean, it looks like he'll be playing playoff soccer with North Carolina, and maybe, I mean, who knows what happens in the playoffs? Anything can happen. But my initial thoughts on Oliver Semmle is, yeah, I agree. I think that this is probably something that should have happened a while ago. Does have a team option for 2026, and it does feel like it's probably the end of Oliver Semmle in Philadelphia, and it's a massive jump up coming from the USL to MLS. And I think Oliver would probably tell you the same thing if you asked him. Being thrown into the fire last year, if I'm not mistaken, because of an injury to Andre Blake, I believe, in CONCACAF Champions Cup to start the season. Semmle made his debut against Saprissa. Is that who the Union played the opening game against in CONCACAF Champions Cup? I can't remember. But yeah, I believe it was Saprissa.
It was Saprissa, because I think I recall them playing at, wasn't it El Huracan? That was what they called the stadium, because it was noisy as hell, etc.
Yeah, they played down in Costa Rica first, and they came back in Philadelphia and played. And the Union almost blew that game, and luckily they advanced. But yeah, I think if you were to ask Oliver, I think he would say he's happy to make the jump up that he did from Louisville, where he was, if I'm not mistaken, goalkeeper of the year down in USL, and now he goes to a place where I would imagine he'll play consistently. He knows the league, and maybe he can find his footing again. Maybe he does so well with North Carolina that he gets another chance. Maybe that option gets picked up. But I think the big thing for Oliver is that international slot that it opens up. The Union have done this in the past, having third string goalkeepers take up international roster slots. We saw it with Mboli years ago. We saw it a couple years ago with Carlos Cornell when he was brought in on loan from Salzburg, and then eventually they cancel that loan, and then he winds up signing with New York Red Bulls. But it makes zero sense to me why you would waste an international roster slot on a third string goalkeeper, let alone even a second string goalkeeper. I mean, Oliver Semmle wasn't brought into the club to take over for Andre Blake, to compete for Andre Blake. You brought him in because you wanted a stable goalkeeper. And we all know how last season went. It went downhill very, very quickly. Andrew Rick was always going to get a homegrown contract, but I think maybe that ended up happening a little bit faster than the Union would have anticipated just because of how poorly that Oliver played. And so, Oliver's poor performances was to Andrew Rick's gain. And now I feel confident. I was talking to people last night at the stadium that if this was last year and you had to do the whole thing all over again, Andrew Blake's getting hurt, do you have the confidence in Andrew Rick? Maybe not. But after seeing Andrew Rick play consistently last year, playing multiple times this year, he has the confidence of his teammates. We've talked about it so many times here on the show, Jose, where we think that Andrew Rick should be playing week in, week out because that's going to help his development. Now Andrew's going to have a chance, I would imagine, at least one game. There's no way Andre Blake's back and healthy for this weekend's game against Chicago Fire. Maybe he is. Bradley Carnell had said last night that he was getting looked at by the Red Bulls medical doctors and because they have all the tests and everything on site. And Andre, after the game, was asked by a fan. I don't know who it was. They asked Andre, yeah, hopefully you'll be back before the semifinal game against Nashville in the U.S. Open Cup. Andre said, hopefully before that. So we'll see this week, I would imagine. We'll probably get more information from Bradley Carnell, hopefully, for Andre Blake. Maybe he'll keep it tight and say he's progressing. Who knows? But I do feel a lot more confident this year in Andrew Rick than I did last year with Rick in Semmle. And I don't think it's that big of a loss as it would have been if this happened once again last season. So, yeah, I wish Oliver the best of luck. I would be curious to see what the Union do for third goalkeeper because you're going to need to have a goalkeeper on the bench. Michael says, do they plan on bringing in an extra goalkeeper, Jose? I'm not sure if you know that. I also got to look at the roster. I mean, they've got to be pretty tight on spots right now. Sure, they could do short-term call-ups. Maybe Pierce Holbrook. Is that his last name? What is it?
Holbrook, yeah.
Yeah, maybe he gets brought up on short-term loan with Union too. So, yeah, the Union do have options, I guess, with goalkeepers down in Union 2. Maybe Mike Sheraton. I mean, he's not even playing for Union 2, so that would be wild to go from not playing with Union 2 to now being the backup goalkeeper for the first team. But, yeah, I mean, we'll see what the Union do there. I mean, regardless, you open up an international roster slot, and I'll ask you this, Jose. I mean, I would imagine if the Union do something before August 21st when the transfer window closes, it's got to be a center back.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this. Is this then the only international spot they have?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And I have full faith that if they absolutely needed one, despite trading one away, they would find a way to get one back from someone else for equal or less than what they got back from, selling their whatever last international spot just a couple of weeks ago, a week or so ago. I mean, 10 times sort of crazy in my head right now. But one thing I'll add before I answer that question on what they could potentially do is this is an incredibly fortunate turn of events for Andrew Rick, who by all means has earned it. We've talked ad nauseum at this point about his talent. I mean, don't have to think too much further back about New York City FC, that incredible save that he makes to get ESPN top 10, etc. His distribution. But this might be the last push if he gets a nice streak of games here throughout the end of the season, maybe into the playoffs. If Andre stays healthy or doesn't stay healthy, maybe Andrew gets peppered in there for a few games here and there as they try to manage Andre's leg. Maybe Andrew becomes the third or the second string goalie for the U20 US team that's about to go to Chile. And that tournament begins September 27th through October 19th. So he could be very much in contention to be part of that tournament alongside Frankie Westfield as well. So something to keep in mind as you and I think about, what does the honor of representing a country mean for the club? And I can't imagine that the club would say, no, don't represent your country at a World Cup. That sounds ludicrous, and I can't imagine that's what the union does. Now, if it was a random international window going into playoffs and need people to stay healthy, I can understand that maybe a little bit better. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Andrew takes advantage of this opportunity. And honestly, it also comes down to releases on the likes of Koken, who's out in Barcelona, and some other goalkeepers across the world that are technically above him in a roster depth chart, whatever. But what do they do with this international spot? That'll be interesting. All I can say that it is extreme. I think it's very likely that they will do something by the deadline here in fewer than 3 days at this point, right? Because it's the 21st. Is it noon, midnight? I don't know what the works. So who knows what they go for? But the rumblings I've heard is that there's movement in a positive way for an addition. On what, on who, from where, from what team. I'm not at freedom to share, or really wouldn't. I don't like to create, noise or rumors or speculation. I only like to report what I know will happen or is on the, verge of being announced, that type of thing. So hang tight. We'll see how it goes here for the next 4 days or so.
Yeah, I like I said, I mean, if the union do something, I would imagine it's center back. So we'll go ahead and see what happens in that regard. I mean, you don't just, in my opinion, sell or loan a player out, free up an international slot, unless you plan on using it. Now, yeah, sure, the union can go ahead and sell another spot like they did with Ty Baribo's spot to Austin a few weeks ago. But yeah, I would imagine there's no way the union want to go ahead and approach the rest of the season relying on two center backs and Nathan Harriel as your Swiss Army knife that can play along the whole back line and as an emergency number 10 if you need him to play that position. So yeah, it'll be interesting. August 21st is when the MLS secondary window closes, and we'll see what the union do ahead of that. But yeah, let's go ahead, Jose, and switch topics now to last night's New York Red Bulls versus Philadelphia Union match. A lot of people on social media, a lot of people in the comments really want us to discuss Chris Donovan. They want us to discuss Bruno Damiani. We'll discuss both players. Red Bulls, we all know that. They won last night 1-0 over the Union. Dylan Nealis scoring the 74th minute, his first career MLS goal. And it is funny too, right? When I thought about that, Dylan Nealis, a right back for New York Red Bulls, scoring his first career goal. I always feel so bad for Ray Gaddis, right? Where it's like, man, you watch all these players scoring their first career goals, and Ray Gaddis couldn't get one. Could not get one. I mean, I guess Olivier Semmle is waiting for a goal, right? But, man, poor Ray Gaddis, right? Close so many times, couldn't get a goal with the Union in his career, couldn't get a goal with Cincinnati. And, yeah, we see it right back in Dylan Nealis scoring his first goal last night with the New York Red Bulls. But
tidy finish, too.
Yeah, it was a fantastic finish. I mean, to put that in the bottom corner, nothing Andrew Rick could do there on that play. And yeah, might as well talk about that goal, right, Jose? I mean, I mentioned it. And is it a little bit harsh to blame Olivier Semmle? I'll let people in the comments make the decision on that. But ball gets played forward, and you have Olivier Semmle who's pushed up higher than the rest of the back line. Ball winds up coming to him, and he just gets the ball stolen off of his foot. He's complaining, thinking that he's fouled, and because of that, now the Union have to all shift over right with Macania, Nathan Harriel, and Kai Wagner, and it's a 4v3 opportunity for New York Red Bulls. Choupo-Moting receives the ball from Forsberg. He's 1v1 against Nathan Harriel. Harriel misses the tackle. Now you have Kai Wagner, who's 1v1 in the penalty box, and then you have Dylan Nealis just running freely down the right side of the field. Maybe you could have got more help from Anilowski tracking down the side. I'm trying to think who else was playing as an attacking midfielder at this point in the game. Bedoya was out, if I'm not mistaken, in this point. I think it was Ilowski, right? Playing as the 10 on this, because you went with Bruno Damiani and Ty Baribo. So, yeah, maybe Ilowski could have tracked back, help out defensively for the Union. But, yeah, I mean, if Olivier Semmle doesn't lose the ball there, maybe it's not a chance for New York Red Bulls to go in. And yeah, it's just they force a turnover, and we've seen the Union do this so many times, right? They turn the ball over at half field, and then they quickly break. They have numbers for it, catch the team out of position, and I mean that's what you get with these two teams every single time. It's going to be hard tackles. It's going to be gritty every single game, and it's what we've seen with Nashville too. I think they're a very similar team to how the Union play, and to see the Red Bull just punish one Philadelphia Union mistake, they get one chance. It felt like the whole game, and they make do of their chance. They bury it. Yeah, they had a chance earlier in the first half. Choupo-Moting, I believe it was, had a header. Andre Blake saves that easily. But
Yep.
one thing I was talking about with somebody after the game, they were mentioning that these type of games that we saw last night are what the playoffs are going to be, Jose, where you're not going to get 5, 6, 7 chances a game. You're going to get one, maybe two chances in the playoffs. And the teams that are going to advance through the playoffs are the teams that can bury those chances. And the Union get one chance with the penalty spot. We can talk about that later if we want. Again, I know a lot of people want to hear us talk about Donovan and Bruno Damiani, but Red Bulls get two chances all night long. First one saved, second one, it's a really good finish by Dylan Nealis. And unfortunately for the Union, they don't get many chances in this game. The penalty spot gets saved. But yeah, this is what playoff soccer is going to look like. Not many chances given up. It's going to be fought hard defensively and in the midfield. And all it takes is one chance. And, if you can't bury your chance, then it's going to come back and haunt you. And that's exactly what it did last night with Dylan Nealis finishing from the right side of the field.
Yeah, and if we even want to backtrack a little bit, and you're absolutely right, this is exactly what playoff ball is going to be like, right? It just turns out that the ball bounced or slid over the perfect way to Nealis to go ahead and. I mean, I'm not going to be shy about it, but like, holy shit, what a finish. I mean, when I saw it, I was just like, that is, I actually had to like look back and think, see, is that really a right back? Cause that was a season striker's finish, like that was pretty good. But listen, if we go back to whatever it was, 7 or 6 changes from the US Open Cup roster or starting 11 to Saturday's Red Bull game away from home, there were only, and I might have said this before too, but like whenever Carnell does this, which is very hard to argue with a lot of his coaching decisions because he's had this team humming all year, but it was only going to be one of two ways that this game could have gone. One, or option A, complete masterpiece, right? He goes and gets this rotation in, gets the guys, gives them that belief, right, that he talks about, right? If they have nothing to believe for, what are they practicing for? What are they, putting their efforts for? I would say money, but beyond that, playing time, right? If they go on and get between 1 to 3 points, or I guess either 1 or 3 points, it's a masterclass by Carnell, right? Going on the road after beating the Red Bulls midweek and going to Sports Illustrated in New Jersey and walking away with points, it's a masterclass. Or you get option B, which is what happened last night. Just a bit of I don't want to call it a disaster, but just obviously not a good result with the Union squandering an opportunity with things that they technically can control, right? Because they lost last night. Unfortunately for them, or fortunately for them, Nashville lost today to New York City FC. Unfortunately for the Union, Cincinnati throttled Portland at Portland, which is an incredible result, including the shithousery from Evander to go up to the fans and just call him out in his celebration after his incredible goal from outside the 18. So another missed opportunity, right? Much like the Toronto match, to maybe continue to build a little bit of separation. And listen, I'll be the first one to tell you that. Said this to Mike last night after the game. I personally don't value the Community Shield too much, especially with the way that playoffs are structured now. I wish it meant more, but finish between first and fourth place, you get a home, you get the home field advantage in the playoffs. Like, I'm okay with that, right? But beyond that, like, if you were to ask me, and of course I didn't get to watch it until the following day, I am more than okay sacrificing league play against Red Bull if that meant, and of course it happened, that they beat Red Bull on Wednesday to make it to the semifinals of the US Open Cup. I'm not angry about that, but I can see, why was there that much rotation? Minimal travel to New Jersey, enough days in between to maybe get enough recovery to not need that type of travel. So, or that type of recovery or rotation, whatever. So I don't know. I know I just gave a ton of thoughts on it, but what else is there to say about this game? It's one that, should the season turn out great, we're not talking about it. We never remember this result. But should something go really wrong, is this the start of the downfall? I would argue that maybe it's Toronto, but it's not a pretty game, that's for sure.
No, not at all. And I guess that's a good place to start with. The Union rotating 6 players from last Saturday's team against Toronto. You had Andre Blake in goal for this game, Olivier Bazo, Alawatu Makanya, Nathan Harriel, Kai Wagner, Jovan Lukic, Jesus Bueno, Alejandro Bedoya, and Chris Donovan played as the 210s, with Milan Ulowski and Mikhail Uhr starting as the 2 strikers. But you go back, the Union played New York Red Bulls 3 days ago in the US Open Cup, and they rotated from this game on Saturday to the game on Wednesday, 7 players. They subbed out. They were forced to sub out. Jacob Glesnes suspended on yellow card accumulation. Frankie Westfield started at right back against Red Bull on Wednesday. Bizo comes in. Danley John Jock started with Jovan Lukic as the 2 number 6s. Danley comes out in this game. Indiana Vasilev, who was out on Saturday due to a concussion he suffered on Wednesday night against New York Red Bulls. Him and Quinn Sullivan started as your 210s. Both of those guys not in the starting lineup. And then Bruno Damiani and Ty Baribo, neither one of those guys started up top for the Union. And a lot of people, like I said, Jose, not happy with Chris Donovan starting. And it was interesting, in my opinion, to see Donovan start this game as a number 10 with Alejandro Bedoya, and then you change him midway through the game or the first half to a number 9. And there's a play, and do I take the risk, Jose? Do I take the risk and play this video without getting this video taken down? I don't know. Maybe it is worth the risk. We'll see if I can pull it up real quick. But you know the exact play that I'm trying to talk about is where Chris Donovan just stops. He stops, and it's
Dude,
right.
Even play the shot, brother. That shot, and I don't know, Todd. Let me ask you. Pause this for a second, if you can. If not, let it rip. But that shot that he took, that went 15 yards wide. I'm not gonna be one to try to read lips. I actually quickly moved on from it. Then I don't even think. I think I cut it actually on when I was gonna pause it. And I thought, I don't know. But even people on the bench kind of chuckling at his shot. I don't know. It's hard to not be able to see Kevin Sullivan chuckling and some other guys sort of just what are we doing here type of situation. So I don't know if you have that clip ready at all, if you even got it, but that first half shot that he took from must have been 20 some yards out.
Yep.
It was just not good. And again, in talking with people, I think he is certainly above MLS Next Pro. Is he an MLS player? I don't know. I who knows?
Yeah, with the shot, I don't have it up, but what I would say about that shot, because I said it to people in the press box, I said that was the Union's first shot in 32 minutes. You can tell they were getting frustrated. They weren't getting in areas where they could get shots off. And so I understand why Chris Donovan took that shot, because 32 minutes is a lot to not really get any chances created, to not really be in any dangerous positions. And so you get yourself in quite a bit of space. And yes, it's always going to take something pretty special to beat the goalkeeper out from that distance. I understand why Chris took the shot, because it's a long time, like I mentioned. But at the same time, it looked like a horrible shot. But then the clip that I was showing to people watching this live on YouTube, the ball gets played forward into Chris Donovan, and he just stops. He stops running, and he maybe thinks that he's offsides. And you even see Tim Parker who stops too, because he notices Chris Donovan stops. It's a ball played forward by Makanya into Mikel, or it's a great flick one by Mikel into Chris Donovan. And both Parker and Chris Donovan, they both stop. And again, I just don't understand. I mean, you're taught to play until the final whistle. And Chris just stops. I mean, who knows what could have came in that moment? Maybe he draws a penalty. You don't know. But it was such a bizarre moment just to see, okay, the Union really don't create a ton of chances in the first half. It's a credit to how well I think Red Bulls play defensively. But you do get that moment and you just give up on the play. It makes no sense. And yeah, Chris Donovan, he's always going to hustle. He's always going to work his tail off. I mean, he was so sweaty in that play. It was pretty humid last night at Red Bull Arena. So maybe that is part of the reason why Chris looks so red and everything. But he is always going to work hard off the ball for you, which is maybe part of the reason why Bradley Carnell played him as a number 10. In my opinion, I think Bradley Carnell went with rotation for this game because his goal probably was to get to 0-0. You get to 0-0 at halftime, then you're going to bring your big hitters off the bench. You're going to bring in your Bruno Damiani, your Ty Baribo, Quinn Sullivan, Danley John Jock. All of those guys do wind up coming in. You waste a substitution in the first half because of Andre's injury. We'll talk about that here in a bit. But at the same time, I think you would have wanted to see a little bit more chance creation by the Union, especially after what they did Wednesday night in the third half against the Red Bulls. I mean, look, the Union go down twice in that game on Wednesday against the Red Bulls in an Open Cup. They eventually win it. We know the Union can create chances, but they couldn't. And Bradley Carnell mentioned it on Soccer Wise. I think on Friday he went on Soccer Wise and said that now they have to adapt to a terrible pitch, one of the worst pitches in his opinion, as Red Bull Arena is. And I don't know if it showed it on the broadcast, but there was so many just horrible patches on that field, just missing grass completely. And Bradley said last night, yeah, 99% of our problems were because of how bad this pitch was. We asked Nathan Harrell his thoughts on the conditions of the field, and Nathan said both teams have to play on it, and it's not an excuse, which I agree with, right? But it is interesting to hear two completely different sides of the tale that, yeah, the field wasn't great. Then you have the whole issue with the referee wanting Damiani to replace the ball on the penalty spot after the Red Bull players complained. Bradley Carnell, I know, said that he thinks that maybe played a factor into getting into Bruno's head. That should have never have happened. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, the Union didn't do themselves any favors, and I'm sure we'll talk about it towards the end of the show. They didn't create a lot of chances, and I mentioned it. This is what playoff soccer is going to be. You're going to get one, maybe two chances, and if you can't finish your chance, then the other team's going to wind up putting the ball in the back of the net more than likely. And if not, you're going to penalties where it's always 50-50. So I understand why Bradley Carnell went with rotation. Like you said, Jose, you're only traveling up to New Jersey. The game didn't go into extra time on Wednesday night. Maybe because of the weather delay, maybe that plays a factor. I'm not too sure, but regardless.
It was 5 a.m. when you guys finished. So like I didn't.
You're right. I mean, I didn't watch the game either. I was asleep. I think it ended at like 12:30 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, the Union getting into half 0-0, which you would say is good on the road. And now Red Bulls are playing for a playoff spot. They're going to start pushing forward the farther you go into the second half. And the game's tied 0-0 still all the way up until the 70th minute. And the Red Bulls, you feel, are going to keep pushing men forward the later this game goes on, which then opens up counterattack opportunities for you. So, yeah, again, it's just maybe the game plan almost works. You get a penalty kick, you have the first chance, you don't convert your penalty, and 4 minutes later, then there goes Red Bull with the opportunity, and they finish their chance.
For those that maybe are unaware, Todd, the thing, I guess, to add more context to why Red Bull Arena, or I'm sorry, Sports Illustrated Arena was the way it was, that was a hub for Leagues Cup, where they were playing 2 matches each match day, if I recall correctly, because Montreal was using it as an arena as well. So like when they had games, and then the Red Bulls also had games, I think there were a couple of match days where whether it was staggered one after the other. I think there were even days where like one would play at X time of the day and then the next one would play later on in the evening. So it was getting a lot of usage. And make no mistake, the Union, for as good as their groundskeeping crew is and incredible they are, they also had a lot of issues. I don't know if you remember when they took on DC United's Leagues Cup match a couple of years ago. I don't know if you recall that, Todd, where DC United came up I-95 to use the Union field for their Leagues Cup match that had, I kid you not, maybe 150 people in the stands because there was no reason for that game to have taken place at Subaru Park. So when there's that much wear and tear on a field, and it's difficult to keep up with. So I don't like blaming the field. I did not know that Nate said that, so I appreciate that type of answer from him. But yeah, dude, you're absolutely bang on right. This is what the playoffs are going to be like. And if you're rotating, you're not rotating, it's going to be one chance, right, that wins the game. And think about that Glesnes volley from outside the 18 that beat Red Bulls that one year, right? It went into playoffs to ultimately get it done. And it was that one single play and a stroke of luck at the same time. So we'll see how they respond from this, right? They welcome Chicago this weekend on the 23rd. My father is visiting from North Carolina, so I won't be able to go. But I struggle to understand the rotation. And I didn't even think about that, Todd, in terms of, I'm guessing by the time that media duties were done and the game was over, and then media duties were gone, I'm guessing some players probably didn't get to their beds till like 2:30 in the morning. Like that is unreal. If you're an unused bench player, I think you go in the next morning and do some sort of work because you technically didn't get the minutes under your legs. So like, I don't know how it works for them on that situation. So yeah, I guess that could be a factor onto the rotation, but I don't know. Where do you want to take it from here, I guess?
The injury, I think, to Andre Blake in the 24th minute looked to be a hamstring injury. He grabs hamstring, and I'll go ahead and I went back like during the game to find the clip to Andre getting hurt, and it's unfortunate that Andre yet again gets injured, and I understand fans' frustration with Andre just seemingly getting hurt every single year, it seems like. But the Union have an attack, and it gets cleared away by Red Bulls, and they play a long ball up top. It gets deflected by the Union in the midfield, but then again, the ball gets played forward into Choupo-Moting. Andre Blake wants to come out to get the ball. He decides, ball's too far wide, and then he starts to run back. And as soon as he runs back, he grabs his right hamstring, and you see it here on the clip. He's grabbing his right hamstring. It should come up here in any second. You see it like very, very quickly. Maybe not. Maybe I don't have it. There it is. Yeah, he's grabbing his right hamstring. And yeah, Andre Blake during the game tries to stretch it out. I believe they showed that on the broadcast with the training staff out there just trying to work at that hamstring. Once the training staff goes away, Andre Blake's trying to jog off and just work it out, but then he falls right back down to the ground, and it's like, great, Andre's done. And Bradley Carnell talked last night about, and I didn't even think about this, how that unplanned substitution really changed the rest of the substitution patterns for Bradley Carnell the rest of the game going forward. Because yes, you use 1 of 5 substitutes on a goalkeeper, but then you burn one of your 3 windows. And so now the Union only have 2 windows to use. And maybe they were always going to bring out Chris Donovan at halftime for Bruno Damiani, but maybe that was a little bit too planned, because Bradley knew, okay, well, if I don't use this substitute at halftime, then I only have 2 more windows. And so, yeah, Bradley Carnell talked about after the game how once that moment happened, kind of threw everything off course for the rest of the game.
The minute that happened, I was like, that screwed us a little bit. So again, a game unfolds in different ways. We start at 0 minutes, we end at 90, and then we have to play the cards we get dealt. It's just what it is. And again, we were inconvenienced a little bit by it, but I thought the guys who came on made a push, and we got back to ourselves. We got it to 70 minutes at zeros, and we got a penalty to get the go-ahead goal. So, and unfortunately, it doesn't unfold that way. We coulda, woulda, shoulda, and we would never have known.
And he mentions it right there, right, Jose, that even when they made the substitutes in the second half, it's still 0-0, and they get the penalty. And maybe we can switch away from Andre Blake for a second and talk about the missed penalty by Bruno Damiani, because again, so many people in the comments talking about Damiani. I saw a lot of people on social media last night complaining about Damiani being the penalty taker. They didn't want him taking the penalty, but Bradley Carnell said it a few months ago that if Bruno is on the field, he is the designated penalty kick taker. I think that's fine by Bruno to aim low in the corner, but the issue was not enough pace on the ball. And because of that, it's an easy save for Carlos Cornell. And again, to Bradley's point, okay, it sucks that Andre Blake gets hurt. You waste a substitute there, but you get into half tied 0-0. You start the second half, still not creating a lot of chances, but you finally do get the penalty kick. Alaski wins the handball off of Tim Parker, and you have a chance to make it 1-0, and your penalty gets saved. And I could feel it, that the energy, you heard it from the Sons of Ben. They were to the right of us where the new press box area is. As soon as that penalty got saved, they got really, really quiet. And maybe the players felt the same way too. Like they knew it was going to be difficult because they were struggling to create any meaningful chances throughout the game. They finally get a chance with the penalty and it gets saved. And I almost called it Subaru Park. Red Bull Arena, I want to call it too, but it's Sports Illustrated Stadium. It's always going to be Red Bull Arena to me. Once Cornell saves that penalty, it brought new energy, new life into the stadium, in my opinion. And 2 minutes later, 3 minutes later, Red Bulls go down and they score the goal with Dylan Nealis. But Bruno Damiani, we can start there, Jose, right? I have no issue with him taking the penalty because Bradley Carnell had said months ago that he's a designated penalty kick taker.
I gotta tell you, and I don't think I'm not gonna disclose who it was, but in talking with an MLS writer, a very prominent MLS writer last night, just talking about what story we're gonna run with. I wrote about Sonny, former Spurs, last night. So if you want to go read my story on LAFC's victory, you can find it on MLSsoccer.com. Plug. But one of the stories pitched was, and they knew I was in the Slack room, was, Bruno Damiani taking the penalty away from Baribo. So I actually messaged this MLS writer and said, actually, Damiani is the designated PK taker. And this, again, very prominent MLS writer was kind of like, really? What is that all about? So, for what it's worth, I think that, Bruno being the designated PK taker is certainly an interesting thing. I think your description of the penalty, having watched it multiple times now, is accurate. It was a well-placed kick, just not enough space. Though I think credit also needs to be given to Coronel for making that save. I think it was a fantastic save, and it seems I'm like the only one in the world who recognizes that it was also a good save while also being a bad penalty kick, right? So, like, for what it's worth, I think there's some credit to be given to the goalkeeper as well. But what I will say about Bruno Damiani is that, like, again, he seems to be, actually, it's not that he is. I get what his role is and what his job is, right? Because at his role, it is to score goals. I get that. And he's not doing that. But when you look at the metrics across his entire game and what he does with the pressure and what he does in activity off the ball and what he does in linking up play and just being a nuisance up front, and I can count multiple times last night alone where he applies pressure, creates a throw-in for the opposition up the field in their defensive half, and you see Bradley Carnell clap him on and like yell for him, just like utter like joy for him pressing. He's off the charts on a lot of those things, but where he is missing is just that final touch. And maybe it comes next year, maybe it comes later this season, which is, I think, what Bradley Carnell is maybe banking on or wanting to. But am I mad about him having a first year where he comes in with no preseason with the club, right? He came in, he didn't play any preseason games, did he? He came into like the first or second week of the year.
Correct.
Comes in with no Marbella under his belt playing against those sides or getting to know the guys. And now, what is it, 7 games left or fewer than that? I can't remember how many are left at this point. Still a nice runway for him to get going. And it probably absolutely sounds like I'm making excuses for the guy. But like, again, the metrics everywhere else, and I'm not even looking at XG, which is what a lot of simps for XG go and do, is that he is doing a ton off the ball that people are not realizing, are not recognizing. And I get it. As a striker, his job is to put it in the back of the net. And we've talked about it, Todd. I can share more clips, but that scissors kick against Toronto, that shot against Atlanta, that, quite frankly, you add 2 goals to his name and suddenly you start thinking, okay, well, like metrically, he's a lot better, right? Because he's already doubling or nearing, higher, because he's on 4 goals for the season. I think last night would have been his 5th or 6th. So you add 2 more goals. He's already at 6. He adds last night's PK. He's at 7. You're feeling a lot better. Quick search, Todd. What's Emmanuel Lathela at right now for Atlanta?
Latte lot. I bet you somebody in the comment section is going to beat me to that. But Latte lot is at.
Has to be fewer than 10. I know that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He is at 7 goals, 1 assist.
How much more did he cost? A lot more. He was 22 million.
More than 4 times.
So,
yeah,
for what it's worth, listen, like, I get it. Not the best game. He came in at half for a player that probably should not have even been on the field at halftime. Let me ask you this, though. Did you think that was a planned substitution, or do you think that the play was bad enough for for Donovan that it spurred the change?
Yeah, I think play was bad enough, but I also think too, because Bradley Carnell knew he only had 2 more substitution windows, instead of making massive changes, bringing 3 players on at one point, I think he used that free window that he had at halftime to bring in Damiani. Because, I mean, Damiani was out there pretty early in the halftime window when the team's still in the locker room. It was Quinn Sullivan, Neil Pierre, and Bruno Damiani warming up at halftime. Neil Pierre obviously never comes in, but I guess Quinn Sullivan needed somebody to pass the ball around with, and then Bruno Damiani was the substitute that came on at the start of the half. But yeah, I think maybe part of that was because you burned one of your windows in the first half with Andre Blake getting injured and then Andrew Rick coming on. But one thing I was looking up is, while you were talking about Damiani, his XG, and I know XG is not everything, is 8.8, almost 9. He has 4 goals, and
it's unreal.
Part of that is good goalkeeping, really, really good saves. Part of it is because he's had some misses that you're like, man, how'd you miss that? But the thing I'll always say is, at least he's getting in the right position. He's getting in the right position. And yes, you want to focus on this current season, but we've seen it time and time again. I'll continue to make this argument where, how many players, the first season in MLS, new country, new league, new teammates, new style of play, new everything. It takes them some time to adjust. Not everybody, but it's happened more than enough in MLS. And so I'm willing to pump the brakes on the hate for Bruno Damiani, because look, here's a perfect example. Julian Carranza, right? When he first comes into Miami, if that was in Philadelphia, how many fans would have wrote Julian Carranza off? Or when Julian Carranza was announced coming to the Union on loan, how many fans were upset about that? And then he winds up coming good for the Union. And so it takes time, right? It takes time, because do you think if Miami would have known that Julian Carranza, and I think they did know, because that's why they went out and got Carranza in the first place. They knew his talent. They believed in his talent. Just it didn't work out in Miami because of roster construction and a whole bunch of other reasons. They sent him out on loan in Philadelphia. They knew he was a talented player. They just couldn't bring that out in Miami. and he comes to Philadelphia, and he a fantastic signing for the Union. And so it takes time for players to adjust. And so, yeah, fans may be getting tired of that excuse. What, 25, 26 games now Bruno Damiani's at? But again, I would argue there's multiple players over the history of MLS where they come into the league the very first season and they don't set the world on fire. So, look, I'm not too disappointed.
I think that, and listen, I will be the first one. I see the comments on the side here, and I appreciate everybody commenting. I know Todd does as well for hopping on, keeping the show going, and giving us content to talk about and blend into the conversation. I'm a firm believer that reasonable minds can differ, and I think this is one of those situations where a lot of people are, like, well, I'm not buying it, right? I'm not into this. I'm not understanding where you're coming from, and that's totally okay. We can totally defer whether or not Damiani is a suitable, most expensive player in Union history, which, again, that mark is not very high compared to what other clubs are doing. I mean, my goodness, we just talk about Emmanuel Latela being 4 or 5 times the value, purchase value that Bruno Damiani is, and having, honestly, I would say similar seasons despite Latela being a little bit ahead. Certainly not as much fucking hype, that's for sure. Didn't have Tom Bogert posting about him 7 or 8 times leading into the deal. So I think all it takes is for Bruno to have, goodness, Todd, like 1 or 2 good playoff games. We are not even discussing this anymore. He scores 1 game winner, 2 game winners in the playoffs, and I think everybody forgets about this. Absolutely everybody forgets about it. So listen, I think for the sake of the club, and obviously you and I are on the press side, and we try our best to remain as neutral as possible. I know we have fondness for the club, et cetera, from following them and getting to know people in and outside the club, that I hope that Damiani picks up some sort of heat, some sort of steam going into the playoffs. It's the final sprint, so if he's going to do it, it's got to be now and soon, and certainly well ahead of next year, because you don't want to go into next year having this shitty feeling from fandom that you're just they don't like you, they don't believe in you, they don't think that you got the job done. And again, the price tag may not be very high, but I think that there is a sense of pressure of being he's on a young designated player contract, I believe, so that brings on its own pressure. So it's I'm sure sort of difficult for anybody, and I'm thinking about the human side. So it is what it is, and I wish Damiani luck. I tried to interview the guy and we just couldn't get the timing right. So at some point, I think people would love to hear from him more, and get to know him better.
All right, so yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about Damiani. 2 more things I want to get to before we get to them. Andre Blake, we did start off talking about Andre Blake. Yes. He comes out injured. A lot of fans, I think, are very, very upset that Andre once again is injured. Hamstring injuries, there's no telling with them, right? Especially what Andre is 34 years old now, 35. The older you get, it's got to be a little bit harder to recover when you were a 24, 25-year-old goalkeeper. And to see Andre come out, make the sprint, and then sprint back into goal because he realizes he can't get out to the ball, it's got to be so difficult, right, Jose, for a goalkeeper to move quickly to play as a sweeper keeper, and then you got to move back into your goal because you're like, I can't get to this ball. And so when you're a goalie, you're not seeing a lot of action, you're not seeing a lot of shots. You got to figure out how to keep your body warm. You got to figure out how to keep it going. And it took just one moment of Andre running out, then running back, and he pulls on his hamstring. And it's an unfortunate moment, and I understand why fans are upset with this injury again. And it's unfortunate for Andre. He doesn't want to get injured. But the last 2 seasons, the storylines have been more about Andre Blake missing time because of multiple different injuries than Andre saving points for the Union, winning games for the Union. It's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. And, I can't think, Todd, and this is something I wanted to text you. Actually, this is another thing, like, I'm getting used to being back in the States. being able to use my phone whenever I want and being able to text and call whenever I want and not feel pressure of like, I can text whatever with T-Mobile, but like phone calls are just like, shit, it's 25, 30 cents a minute, whatever it is. Like, I feel like I dialed the clock back to like the early 2000s with like minutes and having to keep track of them or whatever. So I guess I should have called you when I was thinking about this, but can you think of any goalkeeper across every possible league that has been as injured as Andre Blake?
Every league. Well, if I can't think of a goalie off the top of my head, then that would be no. That would be no.
Okay, yeah. Like I'm trying to think like injured keepers who just like disappear from time to time. I mean, I even think keepers that use their legs, and certainly in modern football, soccer, that like Ederson for Manchester City, hardly ever injured, right? And he's kicking 70, 80-yard dime passes left and right on his way to Vince. That's actually a good shout. Stefan Fry, as much as Andre Blake, I'm not sure. And some of it is, wasn't he like on some serious concussion protocol?
Yeah, I do believe so.
Okay. So I don't know. Maybe I take concussions a little bit differently than a hamstring. So maybe I should have clarified that a little bit better. But nonetheless, like this is why that timing, I think, was very weird with me sharing the what sources have told me reportedly that Olivier Semmle is on his way to North Carolina. Hey, there's Sexy Hoagie. I can't think of another goalie, period. But she spelled out period. I think it makes it difficult when you think about, okay, what are the options here, right? I think you and I are in unison that, yeah, it's great that Andrew Rick now becomes the number one for a little bit, but is it Piers Holbrook? Really? Like, is that it? Like, that's a lot of trust on a guy who was just playing at Navy and now, doing okay, if not well, at MLS Next Pro. So, yeah. So I wonder, I think what would be very telling for a lot of reasons is whether or not Andre shows up to Jamaica's international games during the upcoming window, to whether or not he'll feature on the 16th of September or not.
Yeah, that's true. One other thing I do want to point out, because I forgot I had this clip lined up, is it's got to be so difficult for Andrew Rick coming into this game on planned substitution where you don't get any warm-up. He did speak to us last night, and he mentioned how difficult that is as a goalkeeper. But then I took it a step further and asked him, I said, I understand not having your warm-up with Phil Wetton, taking live shots and everything, getting your body right. But then as a goalkeeper too, when you're thrown into the fire where your team's playing that well defensively, Red Bulls last night, they only had 7 shots all game and only 2 shots on target, where Andre Blake makes 1 save, and then the second shot that was on target was the goal. I asked Andrew Rick, how difficult is that as a goalie where you're basically just standing in your goal, not having much to do because your team is getting blocks in, they're winning tackles, they're winning interceptions, they're clearing the ball away with their head. How difficult is that for you as a goalkeeper where you're not seeing too many shots? And this is what Andrew had to say.
Yeah, it's really difficult, especially when kind of just thrown into it. But yeah, like just mentally being ready is something that takes years of experience. I give Dre deserves a lot of credit because he does it week in, week out. He sometimes won't have to make a save, and then he's there like when we need him. And I think that's what that's where I want to grow. It's not easy, and in my opinion, I don't want it to take experience. I want it to happen now. So I'm gonna do everything I can, to be there for the team. And when situations like that arise, like I want to be there to make a save and either tie the game or win it.
I love the confidence in Andrew Rick, and that's why I was saying earlier where if this was last year and Andre Blake's hurt, yeah, I'm not that confident with Union going forward the rest of the season. But because Andrew Rick does have that experience, towards the end of the season, you started seeing that confidence come. Played multiple times now this season with the Union's first team. I have all the confidence in the world in Andrew Rick. His teammates have all the confidence in the world. You heard him here saying he wants it so badly to help his team get a tie, help his team get a win. And he actually did. Towards the end of the game, Jose, have a chance to help his team get a tie. He wins the header against Jarrett Stroud. and the ball falls to Quinn Sullivan, which I made the mistake after the game. I'll out myself. I thought it was Nathan Harriel who had the shot, and Nate quickly corrected me. He was like, no, it was Quinn. But sitting so high up in the press box, it was so hard to see the players and everything. You can't see the last names. You can't see the jersey numbers and everything. I mean, it's like you're basically in the clouds where the new press box is, and people in the comments are probably thinking, oh, boo-hoo-hoo you. Like, wow, you don't get your nice bougie seats at center field where they used to be at Red Bull Arena. And, yeah, Andrew Rick, I mean, doesn't face a lot of shots, talks about how difficult it is, and he gives credit to Andre for so many times that happens to Andre, and then where it's just one moment where he needs to make a save, he makes it save. And Andrew doesn't want the experience. He wants it now. He wants to make those moments now. And that's what you want to hear in a young 19-year-old goalkeeper, saying that he wants it now. He wants to do whatever it takes to help the team win. And he does it too offensively for the team last night. We saw him already this season get an assist on a goal. I forget who was it, Quinn Sullivan, who scored the goal, if I'm not mistaken. We saw him go up last night, win the header for the chance for Quinn Sullivan, hits it over the crossbar. But I have all the confidence in the world in Andrew Rick, however long he has to play the remainder of the season. But it's got to be difficult. You heard Andrew say it, where you're not facing any live shots and you're just basically stagnant in your goal. Like, how do you keep yourself occupied? You finally face a shot from Dylan Nealis, and there's nothing you can do there in that moment.
Yeah, it has to be incredibly tough. And I've never played goalkeeper. I've always been just a midfielder type of person. So, like, I don't know the first thing of what it's like. But it's a large, they're large shoes to fill in when you think about Andre Blake and the legend that he is, and how successful he's been. I think the only goalkeeper to have won Goalkeeper of the Year 3 times in MLS. So that's incredible. So I see Mueller, however you say it, getting ready to go in for Vancouver over my shoulder. It's still wild that he's chose Vancouver over all the other options that he had. Not Union. That one I understand, or the Union not choosing him. But good on Andrew for being confident in himself. And that's what he needs to portray now, and believe in himself and believe that he's ready to do this. Because, again, not only is he juggling potentially a starting spot from here on out for Philadelphia, but also a U20 World Cup, which could, a good performance in that tournament, should he get any time, catapult him to wherever it is next in his career, whether it's in Philadelphia or somewhere else. But yeah, I wish him the best here in this little stretch. It feels like Chicago might be the opportunity that he gets next. But I also want to shout out that he's eating Tros Greek food in that picture. Like, shout out to him. They have one not too far from Newark Airport. I do know that. So shout out to him or whatever catering company that they use, or the Union ordered in food. So I wonder what was in that box. A little jealous.
Yeah, shout out to Jillian Almany, who sent me that picture. So I didn't even think to take any pictures or whatnot. I was like, does anybody have any pictures for Andrew Rick so I can use it for the little thumbnail for the podcast? And she sent me that picture. So thank you, Jillian. We're an hour and 13 minutes into the podcast. There was one more topic I wanted to talk about, but we'll skip it. I mean,
rapid fire.
The Union losing their 5th game this season by 1 goal. Once again, lacking any chance creation. We won't really talk about that. I mean, we've talked about the lack of chance creation so many times on the show and everything. So we'll go ahead and skip that. But I do want to go ahead and talk about Blunder of the Week, unless, Jose, you have anything else you want to mention from this game.
I think it's one to forget, and I think it's one that Carnell is going to watch with the guys clips for probably half a session and just move on, right? Because it wasn't pretty, and the reality is there's not much to dwell on. It was not a game to really get a lot out of, right? It's not like they did a whole lot wrong. It's not like they did a whole lot great either. So it was very much a neutral game. So now they changed the page and welcome Jack Elliott for the first time to Subaru Park, right?
Yep. Hopefully they have a nice video tribute. That's what I said to people last night. I hope there's a nice tribute for a player that spent 8 years in Philadelphia, and probably would have been in the Ring of Honor if the Union would have beat LAFC in 2022 in the MLS Cup. But there's our weekly MLS Cup mention on the podcast.
My
As
God,
people
yeah,
now log off the podcast.
I still have nightmares of that. That our what was that tweet that's like infamous? It's like our
Or Jack's, or what was it? I know exactly what you're talking about. It
when
was
I'm
them
just like,
making fun of Gareth Bale.
yeah, was it because they're both Scottish or something like that? I can't remember what.
Bale's Welsh,
Oh
Jack's
yeah,
Scottish English. I forget what it was.
but it was like, what the fuck are you guys tweeting right now? And it was quickly deleted, but obviously once it's posted, it's
I'm
out
sure
there.
somebody that's listening to this back or listening live on YouTube, they could probably pull up the tweet and
There it is.
send it to us.
Vince got it. Yeah, it
Jack
was.
Elliott over Gareth Bale.
Oh, dude, that tweet still haunts me whenever I see it. It's just like I still remember sitting in this very same living room. Benicio at the time, and you've met Benicio, was like this tiny little like watermelon meat sack that I was just holding, watching that entire game, and then watching it all unfold. Just kind of like, how is this possible? Yeah.
Yeah, game of many emotions. I went to Subaru Park to watch the game. Pretty cool experience being on the stadium with so many fans, and just sitting at half field after the game, like, oh my God, like how did they lose that game? Unbelievable. But let's try to go to something a little bit more positive. Maybe it's not that positive. Blunder of the week, and a lot of good nominations this week from Jillian Almany. First nomination came in about how Bush League MLS Next Pro is. And she was explaining her and Kyle went up to Mount Clair University, I believe, is where New York Red Bulls 2 play in New Jersey. And the press box is in the bleachers with the fans. And I was like, what a weird setup. And so they just told him to go sit in the bleachers with the fans. There's no food, no water, nothing for the press. It's like, do you guys get any press here? And then after the game, they're interviewing Ryan Richter, and they turned the lights off in the stadium. So they're interviewing Ryan Richter in the dark. I mean, how Bush League is it? And you and I mean, we've said a lot of negativity about MLS Next Pro, who's the last few months on the show and everything, about how serious of a league it is. So I thought about that, and then I had a whole bunch of people telling me about how much of a shit show it was on Wednesday with ticketing getting into Subaru Park. Tickets wouldn't scan and everything. So that was almost Blunder of the week. But then, my God, Jose, we've seen a lot of crazy things since covering this team. A lot of crazy moments being in the press. But I think last night takes the top for me. So last night, Bradley Carnell is doing his press conference, and you remember how it was last year, Jose. We were in like a conference room where we were sitting around a round table, and super nice, and it's super, like, not to get off topic, but Red Bull Arena, it's crazy to me that it was built the same year as Subaru Park, and it's 10 times nicer than Subaru Park. I mean, I don't know. I mean, 15-year-old stadium does not look dated whatsoever. You look at Subaru Park, and it's like, my God, like you guys could probably spend $100 million doing massive upgrades to the stadium. But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is we're in this press conference room. We're in this like meeting area, round table with Bradley Carnell, and somebody opens the door. This is towards the end of Bradley Carnell's press conference, and we all look at the door. It's the Red Bull mascot, Red. He comes in to the room, starts shaking his head up and down, bobbing it, just like flexing, like mocking Bradley Carnell, mocking the union. The union's head of PR is telling the mascot to go away. He's not listening. He's not listening whatsoever. He finally gets the hint and leaves. But for a mascot to act that way, I've never seen this ever. I've never heard about this ever happening in professional sports. It's very unprofessional. During a press conference, you walk in, you open the door, you're told to go away. You don't go away. You're looking at Bradley Carnell, you're mocking, you're bobbing your head up and down. I mean, I've never seen such unhinged behavior from a mascot before. I know Philly fans give Gritty a lot of shit about how goofy he is, and he does a lot of weird stuff. But for a team that hadn't beat the Philadelphia Union in 16 games going back to 2019, a manager that used to be an assistant coach there, used to be an interim coach, you come in and enact this unprofessional. It's so strange to me. And I know I had people saying, oh, there has to be video of this. The only video that there is you have to get the security footage from the security people at Red Bull Arena, which I don't think I'm getting. Maybe Pablo Maurer could get that. I mean, I'm sure this is a story he would love to do. I mean, it was so strange, Jose. And after the Red Bull mascot left, never saw him the rest of the night. So what a strange experience to see a mascot bust into a press conference and mock a former Red Bull employee.
Yeah, not good.
No, not good at all.
Oh my goodness. This is one of those few moments, and I chose to be home. There's no way I could have done it. And I certainly would not have been a good husband had I gone to this game. Instead, I went to my alumni soccer game super quick, got tired, and came home and crashed just so I can rebalance my body to the time zones or whatever. But this is one of those moments where I sort of kick myself and think, man, I wish I would have been in that room to watch this, to witness, etc. Like, I mean, Todd, you and I have sat through press conferences where people ask the dumbest shit possible. And that's not tooting my own horn, because I've asked my fair share of dumb fucking questions for sure. Me calling Andre Blake Andre Black during one of the press conferences. I know you recall that one. We've sat into, I actually chose not to be there that game. I was taking a different role in the night, but when Jose Martinez comes in with the bottle of champagne to get Jim Curtin off the stand, like we've seen a lot of crazy. I mean, I've seen international games where press shows up in jerseys and they go and exchange jerseys with players, etc. Like we've seen a ton of stuff. It's unbelievable, but this one's up there as something that I wish I would have witnessed in my time doing press. And I'm sure maybe others have seen something similar, but this one is up there in terms of, like, I know you used the words unhinged behavior or the term, but to me it's like just little brother behavior, right? Like you haven't beaten the Union. Yeah, like you haven't beaten the Union in how long, and suddenly you feel like you can do this, and then they're weird social media posts about the summer that whatever, like I'm just thinking to myself, like, you're celebrating that you haven't beat this team in however many years. It's kind of like a really bizarre thing. Like, just take your flowers, you won, move on. Like, your season's not going that well. Like, I get that you're digging for things to celebrate, but this is an odd one. And Philly Rovers asked, did Carnell not react on? I think I caught Carnell sort of looking and like
he looked up. Yeah,
he looked up and sort of like, and then smiled, like fully knowing that like he's pissed. I think he was probably not happy about it, and maybe had a few words, and like in his head he's probably like, "Are you having a fucking laugh over this? Like, what are we doing here?" So yeah, it's really bizarre thing that I wish there was more video, and I rewatched that press conference, especially that last bit, to try to see a reflection on someone's eyes. Unfortunately, Carnell doesn't wear his glasses for them, or I don't know if he wears glasses. He's not wearing anything that I can see a reflection or anything crazy like that, like forensic and shit. So yeah, just that's up there, Todd. I'm so glad you got to witness it. Just bizarre.
Yeah, Philly River says, did Carnell not react, Todd? I mean, all he did, like Jose said, is he looked up, and then at the end of the press conference, he said, that sucked. I imagine he said that sucked like losing, but maybe he was saying it sucked that the Red Bull mascot Red came in there and was mocking them. But yeah, it was just such strange behavior. I don't know. I would not be shocked if that mascot is out of a job. Maybe Red Bulls is posting now a new mascot for the remainder of the season. I mean, it was just so weird. I wish somehow, some way that there could be a video of this released so you guys could see it. But the only people that saw it was just the very few of us in the boardroom meeting room. And yeah, just so strange, man. So strange, Jose. It's so weird. I mean, I had joked and I said I wouldn't have blamed Bradley Carnell after the press conference if he just went to the mascot and 2-footed him. Like, yeah, he has all of the ammo in the world to go ahead and do that. Like, you were justified at Bradley Carnell if you want to go ahead and put in a tackle on this mascot. But yeah, so strange. And we are at an hour and 24 minutes on the podcast, Jose. 10:35 at night. Longest podcast we've done in a while. Maybe the longest one that we've done. So I think this is a good place to go ahead and wrap up the show. But Jose, we had a lot to catch up on, a lot to talk about for a game that was a 1-0 defeat. Not many action from the Union, and always a pleasure having you on the show. Always a pleasure reading the comments from people on the show. People aren't following you yet, which I feel like everybody in the comment section probably are. Everybody that's listening to the RSS feed are either following you on Substack or one of the many social medias you're on. But if not, where can they follow you?
At José R. Nuñez 91, I believe is my handle. Todd, I think you can bring it up super quick, or little names that go on top of our screens, or maybe not. There we go. You can find me on that. At the top, you can find the link to my Substack, where I try to share very important stuff to everybody via email when it makes sense, or if I have a thought piece in mind, etc. But I think more's coming here in the final 4 days of this transfer window for MLS. As long as it is it indeed the 21st, Todd?
Yeah, 21st. Yep.
Okay, so I'm sure there. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see what happens here in the tail end. But I appreciate everybody who's following, sharing my work, your work, our work with other friends of ours who cover the team. It's exhausting. I very well tried to watch the U.S. Open Cup game, but that just wasn't going to happen. But certainly stuck around the Toronto game and sort of gasped, I should say, in awe at 3 a.m. in the morning when that late equalizer came in. So I was there with you all, just many, many, many miles in an ocean away. So happy to be back in the States, happy to catch up, and we'll see what happens against Chicago. An interesting matchup, that's for sure. A team that has nothing to lose and another one that has everything to sort of drop as long as they don't go beyond fourth place.
Yes, and in 8th place currently in MLS in the Eastern Conference on 39 points, 11-9-6 record. Like you mentioned, Jose, the return of Jack Elliott. Hopefully, there is a nice tribute video for a player that spent 8 years in Philadelphia. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/freekickpod. Live every single podcast on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And you can check out the goals breakdown video, which I haven't recorded yet because, I mean, do I do one for this? Maybe. I mean, 1 goal scored. Show you guys the mess up for Olivier Semmle and the half chances that the Union created. Maybe we do it. Maybe we get it recorded tomorrow, post it maybe late Monday night, early Tuesday morning. I don't know. We'll see. Whatever you guys say. I mean, every time I ask you guys' opinion, you guys always say, yep, you do a great job, Todd. We want as much content as possible. We love the hello and welcome intro. We love the new intro you guys say, even though I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. But you guys do know how to inflate my ego, so I do appreciate that. But finally, if you guys haven't checked out my writing or the podcast or the goals breakdown video all in one place, check out thefreekick.substack.com. Again, you guys are the best part of the show with the comments. So many comments tonight. I appreciate you guys. Jose, appreciate you guys. And again, in hour 30, we are pushing maybe the longest podcast Jose and I have ever done. But that's because of you guys. All your great comments tonight. So we will see you on Sunday as we review, hopefully, a Philadelphia Union win over the Chicago Fire. But with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.